everybody, Diana here at Heartfelt Creative. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Quilting Library. Hope you all are doing great. Today, we are going to talk about star blocks, specifically 8-pointed star blocks. Now, let me just say that there are as many names and varieties of 8-point star blocks as all of my fingers and toes and then more. So I did a little looking up about some of these. Have you ever heard of the variable star, the Houston star, the radiant star, the evening star? I thought that was a pretty one. And then I bet you all have heard of the sawtooth star because it's a really popular one. Then I know you've probably all heard of this one if you've been quilting for any time at all, because it kind of seems to be like it's a rite of passage star almost. That's the LeMoyne Star. So I looked that one up specifically because honestly, for all those names I just gave you, there were a bazillion other names that those things could be called as well. And there's not a whole bunch of really good documentation on when, where, how. You know, I could find one thing that said this star was created here and there and da 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 da, and then 2 entries over I'd find, oh no, this star was created da 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 da. So you know, the truth lies somewhere in between, I'm guessing, right? But the LeMoyne Star, I found some pretty interesting information. So there was a man and his brother, and the man's name was Jean-Baptiste LeMoyne de Bienville. He didn't found, I wouldn't say found, I would say discovered the bend, the crescent bend in the Mississippi River that we all know as New Orleans. And that was in 1718, him and his brother. And it says that this star, the LeMoyne Star, was created for them. And there was a lot of actual repeated history about that. There wasn't a lot of, oh no, it was, you know, by somebody over here or somebody over here. Every time I looked that up, I found this history. So when I find something that's repeatable like that, it could still be completely wrong, I'll grant you. But when I find it repeated and repeated and repeated information, I tend to go with it on these squares until I find proof that no, that's completely not true. But there is something very distinctively different about the LeMoyne Star and how it's created. It is 8-pointed, but it's created with diamond shapes. You get a lot of Y seams, and that seems to be the challenge for a lot of quilters. So although we're not doing a LeMoyne Star today, we are going to do what you might call a cheater LeMoyne Star, or a faux LeMoyne Star. You could come up with other names like that. A false LeMoyne Star, I guess you could say. But we're doing this, and yes, it looks like the LeMoyne Star. Every time somebody sees that, they're like, oh, that's such a pretty LeMoyne Star. And I say, oh, but it's not technically a LeMoyne Star. The other reason LeMoyne Stars are different, they're still 8-pointed stars. They're still in that group. But the LeMoyne Star has very specific angles within those diamonds. Their inner seams and their outer seams can be different lengths, whereas in your cheater quilts, your cheater LeMoyne Stars, they tend not to be. So there's some very specific things for the LeMoyne Star purist to say, yes, that's a LeMoyne Star. The other thing is you are not allowed in a LeMoyne Star to use half square triangles in the center, which is exactly what we're going to do today, for it to be a true LeMoyne Star. And that's fine. You know what? Somebody, if there's that many specifics about a block, then I'm happy to say I made a cheater LeMoyne Star. I'm okay with that. But someday here on the Quilting Library, we'll do a true LeMoyne Star. They aren't as difficult as they seem, even though they have the dreaded Y seam. When I flip the camera over, I'll show you what I mean by Y seam in case you're new to quilting and you don't know what that term means. I'll show you. But I'm not worried about saying, I did a whole quilt in cheater LeMoyne Stars, or whatever you want to call them. And I'm perfectly okay with people saying, you know what, we have some rules about the LeMoyne Star and this is what they are. That's fine too. They're beautiful. They're all beautiful. Although I think I've said this in other episodes, Dresden blocks are really just my all-time favorites. A really close second are all the different star blocks. I just think they're beautiful. They're just something, maybe it's because I like the star days. I don't know. Okay, so this is the block we're going to talk about today, the cheater LeMoyne Star, or the faux LeMoyne Star. And it is super simple because all you have to do is know how to make half square triangles. Pretty simple. So let me flip the camera over. I'm going to give you measurements for this and all in a moment, but let me show you this one. Get as much of it in this camera as I possibly can. There we go. All right, so what I mean by a Y seam, for those of you that are new, when you do a true LeMoyne Star, all of these sections are diamonds and one piece. One piece, one piece, one piece, one piece, one piece, one piece. And when they come and you put them together, kind of like a Dresden, and where they come here, when you have to add this block in, you have right here at that point what is called a Y seam. You can line it up here and you can line it up here, but what do you do about that corner? That's the difference. And that is truly the part that gives most people the most anxiety, is working with those Y seams. Now, like I said, in the future, I will do a true LeMoyne Star, and I'll show you how to work with those Y seams. They're not as hard as they seem. There is a little bit of a trick to it, a tip that will help you, and then you won't worry about your Y seams so much. But the nice part about this faux LeMoyne Star is that it's just blocks. We're just doing this in rows, just like we do a lot of our other quilt blocks. And so we are making half square triangles. All of this is half square triangles, except for your outer four corners, which are just your squares. Okay, pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to flip. You're going to see the sewing machine for a second. Flip back here. There we go. So that is our block that we're going to do today. Now, if you have a pen and paper, pencil and paper handy, I'm going to give you some information that you can write down if you want to go ahead and make this. So, oh, I almost lost my sticky note. That would be horrible. Okay, so you're going to need a background fabric and two other fabrics. Now, granted, on this one, I use some pretty bright colors and I use a really wild pattern out here. The orange is actually a Moda Grunge fabric, so it even has a little of a textury look to it. And then I use this textured looking kind of graphic design one there. The one I'm going to do today is a little softer, so to help you see it a little bit better. But don't be afraid. This brings up another point, okay? When you're quilting, you're going to go, oh, that's a really old block and it looks so old and it looks so old-fashioned. You can make it not look old-fashioned by using brighter colors, more modern prints, anything you want. So if you want to take a quilt pattern from very traditional to more modern and fun and lively, switch up your fabrics, switch them up to brights, geometrics, things like that. And you will get that, you'll get that different look to your quilt. You could even go out on Google and look for quilts that are done in those brighter colors. And I'll bet you'll find a lot of older patterns in more popular, new, modern prints, and they'll look different to you. So don't be afraid about doing a more traditional pattern, because you can spice it up if you want to. Okay, so today I'm going to use the three fabrics I'm using today are by Kimberbell Designs. They are, yes, all three of them are from Kimberbell's basic line. So they're pretty much available at any dealer fabric shop that sells Kimberbell fabrics. You can usually get these, or they can order them for you. So always check your local shop. If your local shop doesn't have them, can't get them, they're not a dealer or whatever, ask them to be a dealer. Trust me, you'll love Kimberbell's products. They're great. Not an affiliate, not paid, all that disclaimer stuff, right? Okay. Or you can always go through one of the big long online retailers, Back Quarter Shop, Missouri Star, something like that. If you just can't get them through a local dealer, you could do that. Or you might know a shop somewhere in the country that you know also has an online presence that is a Kimberbell dealership. Go through them to get your Kimberbell fabrics too. That would be great. Okay, so you need 3 fabrics, a background, a fabric A, and a fabric B. So today my background is going to be this lovely little light print in this green. Now what I've done is I've chosen 3 prints, but they all from a distance read more solid. They're small. They're not big, wild, and groovy crazy like this one is. This is really, I mean, this is what I love, but it will be easier for you to see them with these fabrics as we go. And then you're going to need, let's see. So in this background fabric, you are going to need 4 4-inch squares, just 4 4-inch squares. And you are going to need 4 4.5-inch squares. Okay. And yeah, okay. So then you're going to need a fabric A and a fabric B. My fabric A is this orange doodle print. Recognize that print back there? That's the aqua doodle print on the wall as wallpaper. That's the orange doodle print. I love it. I love this print. It's just, this is about the most obvious part of it. Everything else just kind of blends in, but it's just gorgeous. It's one of my absolute favorites at all time. Any of the colors in that, I love it. So you're going to need 4 4.5-inch squares of fabric A, whatever you choose to use. I will tell you that well, it doesn't matter. The fabric A and B ends up in the center of your square, so that doesn't really matter. Okay, then you're going to need 4 4.5-inch squares of fabric B, and I chose this blue. You can very definitely see it's a print there, but look at it back here. It doesn't look quite so much like a print, and I'm not even 6 feet away from it when I put it back there. So that is my fabric B, and I have 4 of those. Okay. So once you've cut all your squares, your 4-inch squares, just set them aside because we're not going to need those until we start laying it out and putting it together. What we're going to do now is basically take everything else and we're going to start making half square triangles. So let me set our sample over here. And you are going to want to take your background fabrics and put 1 background fabric and 1 fabric B together, and another background fabric and another fabric B. So you're going to have 2 sets like this. You're going to have 2 sets that are background fabric and fabric B, 2 sets. Then you're going to take 2 more, your other 2 background fabrics that are 4.5 inches, and you're going to put them together with 2 of your fabric A's. So you're going to have 2 sets of background and fabric A, 2 sets of background and fabric B, 2 sets of background and fabric A. Pretty simple. Then you're going to take your last 2 fabric A's and your last 2 fabric B's and put those into sets. Pretty simple. Now, what you want to do right off the bat is flip them all right sides together, because we're going to do some marking here in a second, and you might as well just have them all prepared. So I just flip all of mine over so that they're all right sides together and ready to go to the sewing machine. So I'm going to flip my camera again. All right, so I have all of these sets, all of my sets are ready. Now I want to mark these so I can go to the machine and make my half square triangles. Now, You may not mark yours. You may use a tape or something as a guide that allows to guide you to make your half square triangles. If that's the case, go for it. No problem at all. The kind of a standard way is to make a mark with your ruler from one diagonal edge to the other diagonal edge. So let's just lay my little magic wand here, right from point to point. I would make a line right here. And then when I go to my sewing machine, I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch to the left and a 1/4 inch to the right. Okay. Or you've seen me use it before. I'm going to use my little magic wand tool, because what this allows me to do is to actually mark my sewing lines. So that's the center line. That's a 1/4 inch to the left. And this is a 1/4 inch to the right. And those are marked. And I'm going to do that with all of my sets. And I like to line my points up on a line on my mat. It just helps me to see better. Sometimes my eyes will get ever so off on those little lines. And if I have a longer line or a bigger line to mark them on, that's easier for me. But if you've been doing this for a while, what we're doing is we are making 2 half square triangles from every 2 block set. And if you have a specific way that you do that other than how I'm showing you, then you feel free to go ahead and do it. Because all we want to do is end up with a bunch of half square triangles. Whoops, see right there, I slipped and it was off. There we go. And I'm just using a number 2 pencil. Sometimes I use a heat erasable pen. Sometimes I use a chalk marker. Basically whatever I grab, because you're never going to see these marks. They'll eventually, whatever it is, will eventually wash out when this gets washed in the laundry. Oops. I almost did that on the wrong side. There we go. So you can use whatever marking tool you like. Do you have a wash away marker? Do you have an air erasable pen? Whatever you want, that's fine. We just want them all marked. And my heat erasable is actually almost empty, so I have to go grab some new ones. And it's school supply time, so I need to run and I need to get me a whole bunch of little glue sticks for applique and a whole bunch of heat erasable friction pens, because you can get them in big packets once it's school supply time. And then you can always sneak around and get yourself a little bit of new box of crayons too, because goodness knows I do. I'm a crayon fanatic. Alrighty, so I've got all of my sets marked, and I'm just going to take them all now over to the sewing machine, and we're going to make our half square triangles. Let me flip the camera over. There we go. As with pretty much all of my piecing, I'm using a 50 weight Aurifil thread in Dove Gray, and I'm using an 8012 Microtex needle. You can use definitely a non-Microtex needle. You can use a 7511 if you want on your piecing, whatever you prefer. I just prefer an 8012 Microtex. So I'm lined up because of the way I've marked. I have 2 lines that I'm going to sew on directly. If you are sewing down the center, or a 1/4 inch from each side of your center, then you will line that up on your machine. There is this tape that you put down right here, and then you can use that to guide you without marking. It works pretty well. I just prefer to mark, but it does work pretty well. And there are other devices that you can use too to help you do that right at the machine without doing your, without marking. So as you saw, I didn't cut my thread when I got to the end. I just flipped it around and came down my other mark. Now I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm going to chain piece in my next set. Lining up on my stitching line, and away I go. Lift, bring it around. Now, because of the way I stitched that, this is kind of flopping over here, but I can just kind of throw it off to the side there a little bit. And I can just keep going. And I will cut all of these apart when I'm finished. And when we get back over to the other side, we're going to cut all of ours apart, and then we are going to square them up. And we're going to square up all of our half square triangles to an easy 4 inches, okay? There we go. So I think I've shown you this before in a Good Gadgets episode. It just pops those apart. I left it up here to remind myself to use it. And there, now all of our sets are taken apart and we have them all here. Now what we're going to do, I do need to trim that. Oops, didn't get it. There we go. Now what we're going to do is cut all of our sets apart. So we're going to end up with 2 half square triangles in each, from each set of blocks. So I'm lining up my 1/4 inch. I actually need to get a new blade out. I think my rotary blade is starting to go. And this one isn't very old either. I don't know what that's about. I have obviously nicked it or cut something I didn't mean to with it, or somebody snuck into my sewing space. I don't know. But this, it's only been on there a few weeks, so it should be pretty good, but it keeps missing some threads. And when that starts, that usually means I need a new blade. And that's okay, because a packet just came in this week of 4 blades. So I know I have some fresh ones. Almost done here. So all I'm doing is lining up my 1/4 inch line on my ruler with my 1/4 inch line that I sewed. Now I'm left-handed, so I'm doing it on the right side. You might be doing it on the left side if you're right-handed. It doesn't matter which side you do it on. You're just lining it up on that one of those lines with your 1/4 inch, so that when you cut it apart, you're fairly down the middle and fairly even. Okay, so let's bring in the pressing mat. So what we want to do before we press these open is I'm going to be using the Quilt in a Day 6.5 inch triangle. Let's see, what's the exact name? Triangle Square Up Ruler. This one. I've shown you this in another, in a Good Gadgets episode where I talk about different square up rulers. This side has whole numbers and this side has half numbers. So if I wanted to square up to 4.5, I would use this side. And since I want to square up to 4 inches, I'm going to use this side. And actually, let me do something that I tend to forget because it will be easier and safer. I'm getting out my rotary mat. If you have a rotary mat when you square up, you should use it. It's a lot safer you're less likely to slip and cut yourself. So what I'm doing, let's bring this, there we go. I've got my triangle. I kind of put my tip right on a line just to kind of give me another visual point, but I'm going to take and place this 4-inch line right here on my stitched line, not down here on the edge, on the stitched line. And I want you to square all your blocks up to 4 inches. Now, if you square up in a different way with a different tool, that's perfectly okay. I just really love squaring up with this tool. It really gives me good accuracy, and I only have to make 2 little cuts just like that. And that's the Quilt in the Day triangle square up ruler. I know that there is another company that has one that's very similar to it, but whatever square up ruler you use, you go right ahead. Sometimes once you're used to one way of doing it, it's not necessarily easier or more economical even for you to go to another technique. But if you're having trouble with squaring up, or squaring up is a bother to you, try this system. It really works very nicely. And we're just going to keep going until we square all of these up. Oops, I'm a little high on that seam there. And see, I know all of these should have a little bit to come off of them, and if they don't, that means I wasn't on my right seam line. And see, with that rotation, I'm not in danger of hurting myself. And this is just a Fiskars rotating mat. It's a 12-inch, yep, a 12-inch. I also have a small one by Fiskars, not very expensive in the world of rotating mats, but boy, do I like it. So I know there are a lot of ones out there. There's some really expensive, nice ones out there that are on ball bearings and all. Whatever you have, whatever you wish to purchase, but a rotating mat for a quilter, to me, in my opinion, is a must, because it really does help you from having to do this kind of a crazy try to sew thing, or like this type of sew thing. That's so dangerous, guys. Just seriously, it really is dangerous. Okay, so we're done squaring up our half square triangles. That was our last one. Oh, one thing I did want to tell you, my template here, my ruler, looks frosted. Yours won't if you order one. It will come completely clear. Like, let's see, this one is clear, you can see through it. Yours will come that way. The reason mine looks frosted is because I've sprayed a product on the back called Grippy. It keeps it from sliding around on the fabric, which it's a great product. Alrighty, so that one's done. Let's put our mat away. Okay, now we will bring over our pressing mat. And I've got my clapper and I've got my conditioning pen. I just lay a few of them out and I set my seams. Set those right there for the moment. And I am going to press to the dark side. That's what I suggest, but if you are someone who always presses open, feel free. There. And what I do when I'm doing these, because, you know, they're all in just a pile right now, is I just get them all, whoops, wrong order. I just get them all pressed and done. And then when I'm trimming my dog ears off, that's when I put them in the pile that they go in, like all like squares together. But that's really not important. I just do that to help keep organized. If you have a system for keeping your blocks organized, if you do them like all this one and then all that one, that's fine too. No problemo. All right, let's get a couple more up here. Set our seams. Those over there. I'm gonna set those over there now. Get ready for this new set. And if you're wondering what I'm doing with this, this is precision piecing product from Acorn, and it really helps you get a lovely flat seam when you press open your half square triangles, your quarter square triangles, whatever it happens to be. And so before I press mine, I dab a little of that on there. Look what I did there. Uh-oh, did I do that on another one too? I had to have. Oh no. Look at that. All right, so I was not super careful. Look, guys, on one of mine, I didn't have the right sides together. So this is going to be a little faded on one of them. I'm not overly worried about that, but for this particular sample, this will eventually go into a quilt and it will look like that. But because I already have them done and I have them cut and all, I'm not taking it apart and redoing it. I'm going to leave it alone. Oh, there's the other one. Doggone it. Oh, well. If I had noticed that before I cut them, I would have taken it apart and fixed it, but I'm not overly worried. I've done that. It looks like, yeah, I ended up, because you've got two more, so I'm going to have a couple of them like that. It's okay. Nothing in this world is perfect, and I don't claim to be. So if I were doing this for a quilt going into a competition, then of course I would have taken it apart. This is why I don't do competitions, guys, because they make me crazy trying to remember all the rules and getting everything, trying to be as perfect as possible. And I just love to quilt for quilting's sake. You know, I quilt because my grandma taught me. It was some of the best times of my life that I had with her growing up and learning. And for me, doing competition ruins it for me. Although I will admit that I am a quilting judge. Mainly, I started doing quilt judging because I loved seeing all of the great quilts. So it always guaranteed me I could get a ticket into a show, into a quilt show. So if you do something like that and it really bothers you, go ahead and take it apart, use your seam ripper, be gentle with it, and stitch it back together in the right way. But I'm not going to be worried about those today. Now, when this goes into a quilt at some point, because it's going to go into a multi-block, kind of a just patchwork of blocks type of quilt that I'll end up putting together, I will always remember that story, that block was done in a demo where I messed up and didn't get two of my pieces right sides together. And if you saw them and you were screaming out, no, they're not right sides together. Thank you. I missed that though, because of course I can't hear you. There we go. Here's the last one. See how nice that precision piecing gets? Oh, I just love it. All right, now we're going to slide our mat back over and get it out of the way a little bit. Gather up all of my blocks now, my half square triangle blocks. And now I'm just going to do a really quick cut off of the dog ears, and I'm going to now put them in their piles of like blocks so that I know that I have everything ready. Oops, there we go. Okay. I think these colors, this could definitely go into something like this block is big enough. I could do a little table mat, a little table topper with this, add a border or something. And this would certainly look nice for the fall because these definitely could be used as a fall color scheme, the green and the orange and the slightly darker blue. Very pretty. All right, so this is one that's goofy. So since I know that I have some goofy ones because of them not being right sides together, I'm going to make another pile of that just so I don't end up putting them together. What I'm doing there is making that mistake look intentional. And that's a big secret that we don't always get told. In fact, when did I learn that idea? I think I learned that idea many, many, many years ago when I was first in college. I managed a shoe department for Carson Peary Scott and Company, which is a large department store here in Illinois. And a designer came in to help teach me about putting display designs together. And the one thing she taught me that I have never forgotten is to make your mistakes look intentional, because when they look intentional, nobody thinks about them as mistakes because they're intentional. You meant to do that, right? Great, I got all this done. So now I kind of have a pile of the wrong and a pile of the right. But in all honesty, this just looks like it's kind of a different fabric, a lighter version of that fabric. It doesn't look bad at all. All right, so I have all of these and I have my 4 blocks now. So now we're going to lay out our block in our rows. And we're going to start with a solid block in the corner, or not a solid block, but a square. Then we're going to take fabric A in the background and put it together like this, and fabric B in the background. Wait a minute, fabric B and fabric B in the background. That's right. Let's see. Let's get this together right there. There we go. And we're going to then put another solid square. So these are only 4 across. Now we're going to take another background and fabric B, and it's going to go like that. Then we're going to take a fabric AB square, and this is where this craziness comes in for me. So there we go. Oh, so that is going to, that's going to end up looking like that. It's going to go in kind of light dark. So we'll see how that looks in the end. That could be interesting. Then we're going to take another AB square, put it like this. And then we're going to take an A and background square. So A and background, and A is going to go up there just like that. You know, it's already coming together. Look, you can already see the top half. I love it. It's very pretty. Now we're going to come back over here to, I lay out from left to right, just like we read, right? So left to right. Now I'm going to take a background and an A square, and it's going to go like that. And I'm going to take an AB square. Now here is, yeah, I'm going to do it this way. So the AB square is going to go like this. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, you could put that's dark and that's dark. That's your mistake. You could flip those. But this in the center is technically a pinwheel. And so I like the light. Actually, let's do this like this. Put a dark there. We'll end up putting this there. I'm thinking on the fly here. I'm thinking on the fly. There we go. All right, so I kind of like this, yes, because this is going to end up being background and blue. Is that right? Yep, just like that. Okay, I kind of like that. And this one will be background and blue that way. Yeah, I think I'm gonna like that. All right, so we're doing, why do I only have 3 squares left? There's a square around here somewhere. All right, so I'm gonna do, oh, that's okay, they're stuck together. Whew. Oh my goodness, there's my square. So now we're doing our last row. Slide that up. We're gonna do our last row. We're gonna do background square. Then we're going to do fabric B and background. That's here, and it's gonna go like that. And then we're going to do background and fabric A, just like that. And we're going to do our last square there. Let me bring this up so you can see it just a little bit better. And there we go. And see, I'm fine with that light. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. Let's see. Yeah, I'm fine with that way. It kind of gives it that light dark look. I'm perfectly okay with that. Sometimes your mistakes don't need to look intentional if they just look good. So I think that looks fine. So that is basically how this is going to come together. Now, what I recommend that you do right now is you take your phone with your camera and you click yourself a little picture. This is put together the same from top to bottom, or from bottom to top and top to bottom. So click yourself a picture of the screen right now so that you have a layout, so that you see how it comes together. So this is my A fabric, this is my B fabric, and my background fabric. And then what you're going to do is, I always start at the bottom. You can start at the top row, it's up to you, but I bring these down. I sew these 2 together and these 2 together, and then the 2 sets together. I do that on all 4 rows. And then I sew this row and this row together, and the top and this middle row together. And then I do this big section and this big section together. And then I end up with that lovely block, which is a cheater LeMoyne Star, a faux LeMoyne Star, whatever you want to call that. Let me flip the camera over. So that is our faux LeMoyne Star, or if you want to, just one of our 8-pointed stars. So basically, the way we did this to make it look like a LeMoyne Star without doing the actual technical cutting way to do a true LeMoyne Star is we basically made a pinwheel, and then we added these half square triangles to the 4 outside edges to bring that diamond shape out. And then we finished it off with our 4 blocks in the corners. So really very easy. You're just making half square triangles and basically sewing them together with a block with a square on the 4 corners. That's it. And I really do like how this one turned out. I'm going to finish sewing it together, and then it's going to go in a quilt. And maybe I will make a whole bunch of faux LeMoyne Stars and do a whole quilt that way. That would kind of look fun and all different. Some brights, some more muted fall tones. That's really pretty though. I might put an edging on that and just make that into a table topper. You never know where you're going to see these quilt blocks again, because I use them, I demonstrate them, and then I use them. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me today for the Quilting Library. If you have any questions, please add your comments here, or come over to Facebook to my group, Sew in Common. Leave your questions there. Lots of folks in the group can answer them for you if I don't see them quick enough. But I try to get to every single one of the comments, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. And if you need more ideas on what to do with these, with your blocks, if you're making a bunch of blocks, I just say get a bunch of them until you've got enough for a nice quilt, maybe a throw quilt. Something like this makes a great throw quilt because they're all different, all kinds of fun colors. It doesn't always have to be all matchy-matchy from a single pattern. In fact, I love quilts that are more scrappy like that personally. So, But if you have any questions at all, just get a hold of me. I'm happy to help you out. Until next week, sew life beautiful, and we'll see you at the Quilting Library. Bye now.